This is Dr. Kavita Singh, Associate Professor in Department of Civil Engineering in Institute of Aeronautical Engineering. So today we are going to discuss a topic called as Introduction to GIS Data Management. So GIS data management, till now when we have studied about the raster data, vector data and spatial data, non-spatial data. So these are all different kinds of data which is managed by the GIS. So how it is managed, what type of storage it is, where it is managed, and where the data can be stored, and further it is used for the analysis part. This is all we are going to learn today. So let us start with the contents. So contents will be introduction to the GIS data management, and what is GIS data management, key aspects of GIS data management. So this all we are going to discuss today. So let us start with the introduction part. So what is GIS data management? What is data management? How the GIS managed? So how GIS manages the data? So if you remember, we have a lot of times we have discussed the GIS as having two types of components, that is hardware and software. So when you talk about the GIS setup, when you talk about the organization, it has a hardware component, it has a software component. So software component when it is possible, when the hardware component is available. So this all kind of data will be stored in a database in the hardware component. So when you talk about this data management, geographical information system, it's a powerful tool that will enable us for visualization, analysis, interpretation of spatial data to understand the relationship patterns and the trends. So when it is possible, when the visualization, when the analysis and when the interpretation is possible of the spatial data, how it is possible when GIS is having the different relationship we have to understand. So when the data is stored in the DBMS, so basically the data management will be controlled by the DBMS. Okay, so database management. So database management will be stored by the DBMS, and we have to understand how the data is stored and how the analysis and interpretation of the spatial data is done. So when this data is stored in the DBMS, then the data can be managed in the GIS. So what kind of data we use in the GIS? If you remember, we have many times discussed, that is raster, vector, spatial, non-spatial. Okay. So these are all kinds of data we have in GIS to be managed, and effective GIS management is crucial for maintaining the integrity, accessibility and the utility of the spatial data. So once you effective GIS data management is used, then it will be helpful for maintaining the integrity and accessibility of the spatial data. So this introduction covers the fundamental concepts and the practices of the data management. So what is the GIS data management? So GIS data management involves the collection, storage, maintenance and dissemination of the spatial data. It helps us to involves the collection, storage, maintenance and dissemination of the spatial data. When it helps when the data is collected together, that is storage, maintenance and dissemination of the spatial data. So this data can include maps, satellite images, demographics, statistics, environmental data. So when you talk about the spatial data, what are the spatial data we have? We have satellite data in the form of images. We have aerial photographs. We have this forest data. We have the topo sheets. So these all data, it comes under the spatial data. So the GIS data management, it involves the collection, storage, maintenance, dissemination of spatial data. So collection, storage means collecting the information through satellite. So satellite will give us the satellite images, then we can store it, we can maintain the data, and the dissemination of the spatial data is done. So this data can include maps, satellite images, demographic statistics. So this data will be including as a maps, satellite images. So what are the different kinds of map we have? Satellite images, demographic statistics, environmental data, and more. So proper management ensures the data is accurate and it is up to date and easily accessible for the analysis and the decision making. So proper management, it ensures that The data should be accurate, it should be up to date, and easily it can be accessible by the decision making. These all are only possible when the data is managed in a proper management system. So this data will be managed properly. So what are the key aspects in the GIS data management? So what are the key aspects we have is data acquisition. So this involves the collecting geographic data from the various sources such as satellite imagery, GPS devices, survey, and existing databases. So it involves the geographic data from the various sources such as satellite imagery, GPS devices, surveys, and the existing databases. So what are the different geographic data we involve? It is involved from the various sources. So geographical data, we have the satellite data, which will show you the spatial information, the maps, and it will show you the actual data which is collected through the GPS devices on the data which is collected through the satellite data. And through surveying, we collect the topo sheets. Okay, we collect the topo sheets from the surveying. So data can be in the form of points, line, and polygon, or raster images. So all the data, either it will be point, line, polygon. So what is point, line, polygon? It is the vector data, and raster data is raster data will be in the form of grid format. Okay, grid formats, raster data in the form of grid formats, and vector data in the form of point, line, and polygon. So this kind of data will be stored in the GIS data, and this, whenever we want to retrieve the data, if you want to analyze the data, so this kind of information is retrieved and used. So GPS coordinates, roads, land passes, and satellite images are also kinds of data which is acquisition is done from this kinds of information. So GPS coordinates is done from the GPS devices. So through a GPS device, the data is collected. Through surveying, the data is collected, and through existing databases, it is collected. Through satellite, it is collected and stored in the GIS database for getting the output of the data. Now, data storage. So GIS data can be stored in different formats, including the file geo database. So different formats what we have here is shape files and shape files and the spatial databases. So what are the shape files we use it here? So shape files, if you remember, we have in the form of .shp. So shape file will be having three types of shape files are there. One is point, another is line, and we have polygon. So this kind of information will be saved, point, line, and polygon, all the spatial information which is saved in the form of point, line, and polygon. So why it is called as shapefile? Because along with the shape, it has a information. Okay, it has a information. That's why we call it as shapefile. So shape is a point. So that is the spatial. So this shape is a spatial now. So now what is the non-spatial here is? Non-spatial is information. So if you add some information to it, that is called as non-spatial. So this kind of information is stored in the GIS data. So this, once it is stored in the GIS data, then it will be managed easily when we require. So like use with the PostGIS extensions, and each format has its advantages depending on the factors such as the data size, complexity, and intended uses. So it will help us to just find out the data size, how much data is there, and complexity of the data, and intended to how we want to use that particular data can be easily, we can just use with the help of this GIS data management. So like storage, if you talk about the storage, we have a cloud storage. It can be stored in the cloud storage if you want to store the GIS data. And data organizing GIS data involves structuring it in a way that facilitates efficient retrieval, analysis, and sharing. So what is data organization? When you talk about organizing a data, that involves organizing or aligning the data, or saving the data, or adding all the information in a proper alignment. So that all kind of information, we call it as organization. So organization is like organizing GIS data involves structuring in a way that facilitates efficient retrieval, analysis, and sharing. So it will help us to retrieve the data, analyze the data, and share the data easily when the data is organized proper manner. So this includes the defining and adhering to the data standards. It includes the in defining and adhering to the data standards, establishing naming conventions, and creating the metadata. So creating and it's like establishing the naming and conventions. So once you organize the data, along with the data, For example, you have a point here, so just organize with a name. So point means location. So just give a name to it, location, or we can talk about the building, or if you talk about the pole, something like that. You have to just give the name to that data. So that's this kind of information once you add to the data, so it will be properly organized. Whenever you want to search it easily, we can search with the help of the this naming system. So convention in creating the metadata. So once the metadata is created, it will give you the entire information about the data. So if you remember what is metadata, metadata is data about the data. So what data we are using, that information it will give you about the data. So that is called as metadata. So data organization, GIS data management, it organizes the data in a proper format. Now data manipulation. So GIS data often requires manipulation to prepare it for the analysis or to integrate it with the other data sets. It requires the manipulation. It will help in the manipulation, analysis, and to integrate with the other data sets. So tasks such as data cleaning, transformation, and attribute management are common. So such a kind of manipulations we can do in the GIS data management when the cleaning task, if you want to clean the data, if you want to transform the data, and if you want to add the attribute management and the common information, if you want to add to that data, it will be manipulated easily once the data is manipulated in the GIS data management. And then this is only possible when the data is stored in the GIS data in the form of spatial and non-spatial information. So next, if you talk about the data manipulations can be done in the GIS data management. Now, data analysis. What is data analysis? So, GIS enables the spatial analysis to derive meaningful insights from the geographic data. So, it will enable us to derive the meaningful information from the geographic data. So, analysis can be done. For example, you have different themes. You have different themes of map. If you have different types of maps, so this will include the operations like overlay analysis, proximity analysis, spatial statistics, and modeling. So this includes the operations like overlay analysis, proximity analysis, spatial statistics, and modeling. So analysis helps in understanding the relationships, pattern, and trends in the spatial data. It will help us to understand the relationships between the patterns and trends in the spatial data. So this is kind of analysis we do. For example, analysis, when you're talking about analysis, this is the real world data, real world data real world data. Now in this real world data, we have just these are the different themes. So this is buildings. You have this vegetation data, and here you have this all integrated. So this is the drainage. Later, if you integrate this all, then finally you get a real world information. So you can just align this proper. You can add this all information together, or you can just separate this all information later. So this is called as data analysis in GIS, or we can say layer based GIS we do. Next is visualization. So visualizing GIS data is a crucial for interpreting results and communicating findings effectively. So it will help us to visualize the crucial for interpreting the results and communicating and finding out the data effectively. And GIS tools provides the capabilities for creating maps, communicating, finding effectively. GIS tools provides the capability for creating maps. For example, you have different tools like if you have a spatial data, non-spatial data, if you have a different kinds of data, it will help you to create a different maps and charts and other visual representation that convey the spatial information very clearly. Now this is the visualization when you talk about the data visualization. So this is a type of field, you can say. So this is about the agricultural field. Agriculture field. Agriculture field. Here we have single crop because it shows in the green color, and this is about the double crop which shows in the red color in the satellite image. So this you can say it is in the growing stage. Okay, and this is you can say it is harvested. So this is how we can just visualize the data, and we can just interpret the data. So this will be, suppose it's a canal. Okay, so we just interpret the data. So this is the vacant land. So we just interpret the data like this, and it will help us in visualizing the data in the GIS data management. Now, data sharing. So, sharing GIS data involves distributing the datasets, maps, and analysis the results of the stakeholders. So, data sharing is easy once the data is stored in the GIS database. So, if you want to share any maps to the other company, other country, or any information if you want to share with others to the stakeholders, so it is easy to just share the data if the data is managed in a single place. And this may involve the exporting data to the different formats, publishing maps online, creating interactive applications, sessions, and just you can just share the information to your let us say neighbors, or you can just share the information to the other companies, and easily you can just give the output of that information. So data can be just given online for using it at many times at same time. Many places it can be used, and interactive applications can be added to the data sharing. So once the data is added in the GIS data management, the data sharing is easy. Like ArcGIS, it can be shared to the real-time data. It can be shared to the networks, corporate management, sales, marketing, operations, and customer service. It can be shared with the different kinds of organizations to get a proper output of that kind of data. Now, data maintenance. So, GIS data is dynamic and it requires a regular updates to reflect the changes in the real world. So, it is a regular updates. It will show you. It will help us to show the changes in the real world. And data maintenance involves the updating datasets, revising the metadata, and managing version control in the track changeover. So, it will help us in the maintenance of the data. Whatever data is shown and present in the database. If you want to update the information, suppose any construction work is going on, any updation is going on, any kind of flood has occurred, disaster has occurred. So if you want to update the information where the city is spoiled, or it is going to be better, or some which area is safer from here to there, so that all informations can be updated through the maintenance of the data. Day to day or regular updating of the data can be helpful in this with the help of this GIS data management. And revising the metadata, managing version control to track the changes over time. The changes can be tracked over time once you maintain the data, because the information of GIS will be dynamically changes from one place to another, because it changes in the real world. It happens every time. So that all dynamic changes can be monitored and can be maintained through this GIS data management. So like this is a maintenance in the GIS data you can see here. This is the data. If some information is added here, can be added to this. These are the buildings you can see here, and if this data is supposed tomorrow it is like updated to this kind of building, so this data will be updated once the data is fed in the GIS data management. So these are a few contents, references which you can go through to find out the more contents about it. Like an NG Ready book, you can just go through and find out the more content about it. You can just go through these references to get the more information about this kind of data. So this is all about the introduction to GIS data management. So I hope you understood about this. So that's all for today.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.